Okay, this video is mostly for Inmendham, but others, hopefully may find it interesting too. Now, Inmendham, I think you should listen to this video once before you start arguing with it. I'm not saying you're going to agree with, everything in here, but I think there are some ideas that you might find useful. I'm not actually going to get to these ideas until the end, so, be patient for a little while. But I think you'll find it interesting. Okay, look, I've been searching around on YouTube for answers to ethics, and I finally found a philosophy of ethics that actually works for me. I honestly was becoming, doubtful that such a system existed or even could exist that could fulfill my needs as an economist. I have a lot of parameters that such a system must meet. Namely, it has to be both individually and collectively rational. Now, this is because as an economist, I need to think like a cheater, the same way a detective thinks like a murderer. And in addition to that, there are many situations discussed in economics when, where people do things because they think those things are good rather than just, being greedy and self-interested. This can lead to terrible consequences. And learning econ forced me to abandon many notions I had of goodness. So for me, an ethical system must one be individually rational, or I won't do it. I know Inmendham makes fun of Anekantavad because he says like, well, what's in it for me? But look, for me, it's not that I want to be selfish, but as an economist, I have a need to be selfish, um, to think that way. Um, if the best individually rational, selfish response to an ethical code, is to not live up to the code, then for me it fails. For this reason, for me, Kant fails my standard. And I was really hoping that, there could be something there I could use. But I found one thing in Kant, but a lot of it I just couldn't use. The other parameter that I require for an ethical system is that it can be universalized as well. Now, in this constraint, I found Kant's idea very useful. In economics, we can also certainly find situations where people being, self-interested and greedy can also make things worse for everyone, even themselves. So, like case in point, prisoner's dilemma, right? Everybody makes each other worse. Um, the ethical system must be, good for society as well as myself, right? Okay, so for me, an acceptable moral system, it didn't necessarily also have to fit in with my heuristic "don't be a dick" rule. I want to treat others well, but reserve the right to punish. Um, if bad behavior is not punished, then it will continue and could even become a social norm. Where everybody's doing the bad thing. Um, Now I had to kind of tweak this ethical system a little bit to get it to fit into my "don't be a dick" rule. But the the ethical system I found today meets both my constraints of individual selfish rationality and being able to be universalized collectively. When a system of morality meets both these requirements, I consider it optimal because agents will want to do the right thing. It also fits in with my "don't be a dick" rule, although I had to tweak it a little bit. And I'm very excited to find something that allows me to be an economist and have ethics. Now, this idea is nothing new. It's 50 years old from this philosopher named Emmanuel Levinas. Um, I guess my interpretation of it might be a little new, but I didn't change much. I had to modify some things to get the ethical system to fit my needs. I mean, he concludes with the ultimate faith in God is to love others. So obviously, I couldn't stick with that, right? Sorry. Um, However, you might have heard, Emmanuel Levinas's ideas before. Maybe I'm wasting your time. If so, oops. I tried. Shit. So as I was jotting down the notes about this ethical system, I thought about how these ideas might strengthen Inmendham's argument. Inmendham's been arguing something similar to that of other sentient beings have feelings This is the same as me having feelings as a sentient being, and therefore I ought to treat other sentient beings with the same respect I give myself. That's paraphrasing. I'm sorry for that. I know that's not exactly his argument. I'm just kind of giving a general idea. Anyway, I've been more in contrast to this. I've been saying, subjective preferences are necessary. If we all had the same desires, we couldn't trade. And when trade happens, happiness is created like magic, and happiness is important, both individually and in collectively. Now, I can never know exactly what another sentient being's preference structure is. I don't know exactly their desires, but I can learn things about it. And the idea we'll talk about tonight says it's not only necessary that we have different preference structures, but it's also necessary that I can't know your subjective preference structure. The fact that you do not feel the same as me is necessary. So I'm hoping to change Inmendham's mind with this video. I'm hoping he will abandon some of his ideas and replace them with what I'll say here. Now, being wrong when it happens is awesome because it allows us to learn something new. People don't lose integrity when they change their views. Instead, they gain integrity. Like some people, mostly religious types, won't change their views regardless of piles of evidence contrary to their views. And these people have no integrity. Now, I'm not saying that that's wise to change your mind. That's just kind of like an added bonus when you do come across things that you're wrong. When I find out that I'm wrong, I think it's an awesome thing. But it's not why you shouldn't just be wrong to get that. I mean, shouldn't be intentionally be wrong, and you shouldn't just change your views willy-nilly. I think that you might change your mind with this video because I think you might find this idea, 1, agreeable, 2, enjoyable, and 3, I think it would strengthen your argument and strengthen your antinatalist worldview. I'll certainly argue with any calculations that equate happiness to 0, right? Like, I haven't ever agreed to that. But this idea works regardless of how we map preferences. It just requires that they're different. Now, before we begin, I'm going to have to talk about a little bit of historical context. This idea is a post-modernist idea. So the modernists had the goal of showing that there is still objective meaning in a godless world. You don't need God to have objective meaning. Now, the postmodernists, a lot of the Matrix type science fiction writers like Philip K. Dick showed, those guys are still kind of wrong. When you can't even trust your own feelings when memories can be implanted. All science fiction stuff about artificial intelligence and cyber reality and brains and vats and all this kind of stuff. Now, the postmodernists are attempting to return meaning to the world. They say that things have the meanings that we give them. And I'm not talking about subjective meaning. If I think an apple is good and you think an apple is bad, then objectively it is both good and bad. It's a weird idea to get one's head around, and perhaps, I read this novel called Infinite Jest by David Wallace, and it really kind of, I think if you get the book, it shows this postmodernist idea. And the audiobook has just recently been posted on YouTube within the last few months or something. So you can check it out for free. Well, part of the book's effect comes from the fact that, it's written in a way to make the reader not enjoy it. It's frustrating and to read and 1,000 pages long. But I think Inmendham might dig on the book. a major theme in the book is like this emotional addiction. There's a part in the book where there's this videotape, and it's too entertaining. A lot of theme in the book are when things are too good, and this videotape is too entertaining. If you watch it, you'll just rewind it and keep playing it until you die. You won't eat. You just watch the video over and over and over. It's too good. Now, again, this book is really kind of hard to listen to. Not that it's like complex ideas. You just always try to make the reader feel lost all the time. But it's to do the trick of the book. It has to be hard in order to put you into it as a reader. It doesn't do its trick for everyone who makes it all the way to the end. But when it does, people get some really wild new perspectives on the world. But tonight, hopefully, or today, I guess now, we're hopefully going to convince you of some postmodernist perspective without having to sit through Infinite Jest. Now, I'm currently really into this system of ethics, and I also believe that being wrong is awesome. So when you guys find parts of this idea that you don't agree with, please let me know. I'd certainly be interested in that. Anyways, I hope you're ready, because right now, this is where I'm going to begin the idea. The idea is that, oh, hell, let's just call it a proof. Okay. I'm going to pause the video and start anew. Okay. I am a sentient being in the universe. I have subjective preference and structure, and is created from my emotions and intellect. There are other sentient beings in the universe, and they each have their own subjective preference structures. Now, while I can see and learn things about their preferences, I can never know their exact preference structure. For all I know, their preference structure could be infinite. This makes them other from me, and their otherness is fundamental. The relationship between me and the other is what is key. From this relationship, morals and ethics form, because you can't have morals and ethics in a universe of one being. The wrong thing for me to do would be to label the other, to define them and put them in a word box. I cannot label Inmendham as just, some crazy dude, because that would be saying that I know everything about him. Again, his preference structure could be infinite for all I know. Hence, Inmendham's preferences are not something that I can put into words. I cannot know or describe how Inmendham feels. But I can learn things about the nature of the other. I can learn things about their subjective preference structure through observation, discourse, and other forms of communication. The other's differences from me are what is interesting. If we are the same, it would be boring. I can learn things from the other, things that I cannot learn by myself. Their otherness challenges me. Hence, discoursing with others forces me to change my thought. I can learn from the other things about myself that I could not learn on my own. Discourse allows an opportunity for myself and the other to find meaning in the world. If you think that a one-celled organism is too simple a creature for you to learn from, then obviously you must know what it's exactly like to be a one-celled organism. When we listen to other sentient creatures, we can learn things about their subjective preference structure, about what they want. And they say, please don't kill me, please don't make me suffer, I am vulnerable. If I have defined them in a word box in my brain, I can kill them without any loss to myself, because I have them in my brain intact. If I kill Inmendham, I do not kill the just some crazy image dude I have in my brain. If that is all Inmendham is to me, I do not lose anything by killing him. If I torture a bird, I torture the bird, not the definition of bird. However, if the other's preference structure is potentially infinite, I cannot define the other with words. If the other's preference structure is potentially infinite, there will always be more I can learn about the other. If I want to learn things about myself, about the world, about ethics, I must respect the other and the other others. Respect can include punishment, varying degrees of torture, but not torture without justification. Punishment is only justified when necessary under mixed utilitarianist and individualist strategies. Killing is never justified, but allowable for survival strategies. For instance, it's not necessarily immoral when a fox kills a rabbit. Now, when I torture or cause another sentient being to suffer, I could be killing a part of it that I might have otherwise learned something essential from. Learned about myself, learned about the world, learned about them, learned about the relationship between me and them. Hence, the other not only presents me with an opportunity to behave ethically, but because of self-interested goals of learning about myself and the world, I ought to seize the opportunity to behave ethically. So that's the idea. Otherness is necessary. I don't treat them the same because they're the same. I treat them perhaps better because they are other. Anyways, I'm happy to hear you guys' thoughts on all that. I think it's interesting. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I would be keen to know.